Namaskar. Shri Iyer. Today I am joined by Adelle, Nazarian, and Utsav Chakrabarti, and we are going to talk about a new caucus, a new group, if you will, that's got formed in the United States Congress. It is titled Hindu Caucus. Hindu Caucus is something that's probably not expected. Usually people have caucuses formed after countries, but there's nothing unusual about it. And you have India Caucus, you have Pakistan Caucus, now you have Hindu Caucus. And this has been started by a new US Congressman from Michigan, Shri Thanedar. To understand more the intent, the purpose, the pitfalls, and what are the challenges they're going to face, let's talk to our guests. Let's first welcome Adelle and then Utsav. Adelle, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar. Thank you so much.
And Utsav, as always, thank you. And I'm sorry I cut you off, Adelle. I thought you were done. You're going to say something.
No, it was great to be on with you. I'm excited for today's talk.
Wonderful, wonderful. Utsav, welcome to PGurus channel. And I think you were there for the most part of the day when this caucus was being formed. There were a lot of people from all over the United States that came in and, caucus there to have this thing formed. Talk to us a little bit about the event itself, and then I'll go to Adelle with my first question.
Yes, so it was a pretty well attended event for something on a working day in Washington D.C. There were about 125 people in attendance, and it was at the Capitol Hill Visitor Center, which is a very nice location. So all in all, it was a very well organized and very well attended event. There were more than 10 American Hindu organizations from multiple regions, led by two super PACs, Hindu American Political Action Committee, that is led by Mihir Meghani, and then, of course, Dr. Ramesh Japra, who runs American for Hindus, who is one of the most prominent super PAC runners in the country for the Hindu American community. And, of course, there was American Hindu Coalition, which is a 501c4 from the local region, led by 𝙒𝙬𝙗𝑎𝑟 Tiwari. So it was a good gathering. It was a good attendance.
Thank you so much, Utsav. Now my question to you, Adelle. So whenever you have caucuses getting formed, have you seen caucuses formed for a particular dharma or religion, Adelle?
That's a great question. I have actually seen caucuses form more broadly speaking against the targeting of a particular, let's say, ideology, belief system. But I have to say, usually it's not as direct. It's usually a more overarching, generalized issue. For the need and the urgency and the push and effort and the support for the Hindu Caucus for its formation, and to have such support from bipartisan members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans alike, I mean, that really shows it's an impetus, and it shows that there's targeted discrimination, unfortunately, against the Hindu diaspora, and which is what necessitated the need for a caucus to have these issues addressed. So it's very historic in many ways.
Thank you so much, Adelle. Utsav, Hindu diaspora has been there for almost all over the world. Wherever the British went, they took the Hindus along with them to maintain things, to run businesses. These were the accountants. These were the guys. In fact, they were also the manual labor in many of the sugarcane plantations across the world. You take Fuji, you take South America, you take many other places where Africa, they took them with them. So now what has happened is the Hindus outside of India, not that the Hindu Indians have a voice, they really don't have any voice. The way I understood this was that this speaks for all Hindus of the world. Am I assuming correctly?
No, you're absolutely right. So the need for the Hindu caucus, and by the way, I mean there are caucuses for on ethnic groups along ethnic lines. There is the Black Caucus, very big caucus in the US, and there is a Latino caucus. There's caucus based on nationalities. There is identity-based caucuses all across. But you're absolutely right. The need for this Hindu American caucus was primarily to address the need of nearly 20% of the American Hindu community that does not come from Indian origin. There are thousands and thousands of American Hindus who are of Middle Eastern origin, who are of Nepalese origin, who are of European origin, who are of mostly European origin. Hindus are not considered, even Hindus sometimes, because they don't look like Indians. They're Hindus in the Caribbean islands, Fiji, you mentioned. So a lot of people are out there that have no voice, and they're not Indians. So it is important that their voice be heard, and it is also even more important because future generation of American Hindus, who are kids and grandkids of Indians who are born in America, they are also not Indians, they're Hindus of American descent. So they also need to
My
have
children,
a voice.
your children.
Forward-looking
Yes.
caucus.
Yes. So you have now a caucus form. Tell me a little bit about how the caucus runs. So they meet once every so often, and then there are some issues that they take up. Is there like 3 or 4 things that they have on their plate? I'll come to you, Utsav, in just one moment. I want to kind of pick Adelle's brain a little bit. How does a caucus function? Do they meet like once a month? How is that, Adelle?
That's a great question. I don't know if there's a particular cadence with which caucuses actually do run their meetings. So maybe you have a little bit more of an insider access to that, or insight rather. I think it has to do in particular with what the issues are going on during each cycle. There are some caucuses, from my understanding, for example, the Congressional Blockchain Caucus, when there isn't much going on, there aren't many meetings. There was a bit of a hiatus, if you want to call it, or hibernation during the so-called crypto winter. Similarly, I think now is high time for the caucus to meet more frequently. I wouldn't be surprised, frankly, if they meet once a week, considering the issues at hand. But what I do think is very important to note is that there was such a huge turnout, and I think that having representation from Hindu Americans from all over the country, if not mistaken, Utsav, because you were there and you mentioned this in our speech, speaking before that we went on live on the program, that from California, from Colorado, from Michigan, from New York, New Jersey, Texas, that's just a really, really great show in numbers. And so I think with all the support for this, even if there's not planned meetings for more than once a month, a lot of our fellow people, brothers and sisters in arms, so to speak, are going to push for more frequent meetings, because one thing I can say about the South Asian diaspora community is they know how to put the pressure on when it comes to issues that matter to them.
Thanks for that, Adelle. Utsav, question. They have, let's say, periodic meetings. Do you have an idea as to how many have signed up thus far? From the Republicans, from the Democrats, what is the core strength? Is it like in excess of 100? Because progressives, I think they are in 200 plus or something, they claim. I don't know. How big is this caucus form thus far? And what do you think will be the first item they'll take up?
So as far as I know, there are 32 members who have joined the caucus.
That's good.
Which is not a bad number for starters. Now, there are many, many more that could have joined, that should have joined. It's a process. It's that keeps on happening, and as time goes by, hopefully more will. I think I don't know the breakdown of how many Republicans and Democrats are there exactly. I believe there are a lot of Republicans and Democrats equally in numbers. That's my guess. I don't know the exact numbers. The purpose, I think, that they will first pick up as an issue, this caucus, would be the growth of or the rising Hinduphobia across America. So, you have discussed this in your shows, and we have both discussed this.
Yes,
there is literally a vicious campaign out there targeting American Hindus, and I think that will be one of the things they take up in the caucus.
Adelle, I'm going to ask you a bit of an out of the left field question. I'm hoping that you're going to have an answer for this. The Yazidis, if I look at their customs, they've been like a close group of 50,000 plus. They were in a tucked away in the desert. Suddenly they saw the brunt of the ISIS. From what I could see, their rituals, their customs, they look like, a race that probably moved away from India, because they were having a peacock, and then it looked like the god was like 𝙒𝙖𝙀𝘀𝑒𝑎. Do you think such races, which are such groups, I should say, such groups who we can't determine if they are, falling in this bucket or the other, but in a global form, I mean, before Christianity, before Islam, the Sanatan Dharma was there. Do you think a caucus like this might start looking at Yazidis as a possible group that they could get behind?
So that's a very unique question. In fact, I don't know if this is relevant, but I think what you're saying about the Yazidis being targeted, absolutely. They may very well find a home within the Hindu diaspora. I'd like to also equate this with the situation regarding the Druze people. Historically, the Druze have also been displaced and targeted. And what I've seen is that whatever country they end up settling in, they end up adopting the laws, the customs, and the religion predominantly, or culture rather, of the country they're in, whether it's Israel, whether it's Lebanon, whether it's Iran, you name it, Palestinians, wherever they may be. And so similarly, I think that now with the Yazidis being they are so targeted as well for various reasons by ISIS, and of course Hindus and these groups seem to have a common, let's say, detractor or enemy, then they may very well find you can call it a solace in knowing that they have a support system within this diaspora community. So I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Thank you so much, Adelle. You have something to add, Utsav?
See, so one thing that we have to acknowledge is that during the ISIS aggression against Yazidis, it was the members of the Hindu community, especially in America, in conjunction with some spiritual leaders like Shri Thanedar in India, who played a key role in trying to help the Yazidi community. And I was fortunate to be involved in that effort back in 2014, 2015, until 2017. And what I realized is that, theologically speaking, the religion that the Yazidis come closest to, theologically, would be a proto-Vedic religion. In fact, they are a proto-Vedic faith. They acknowledge that. Over a period of 2,000 years, 2,500 years, they have been significantly Abrahamicized, because the prevalent practices and religions around that region are all of Abrahamic origin for the last 2,000 years. So their customs and culture has been significantly Abrahamicized and Islamized. But theologically, they continue to remain proto-Vedic. And I think it is the high time that as a diaspora community that is extremely influential and extremely well-to-do, Hindus take up the voices of these communities that are really in a bad shape. So I would also agree what Adelle pointed out about the Druze. In fact, both the Yazidis and the Druze are two unique communities in the Middle East that believe in reincarnation. And that's one of the defining contrasts between Abrahamic faiths and Eastern dharmic faiths, is a fundamental belief in reincarnation as a thought process in soteriology. So I believe both can be addressed, but Druze, I believe, are more integrated into the nation states they are operating in, as Adelle pointed out. So the Lebanese Druze is culturally now different than the Israeli Druze, who is now in a different space. So it is harder to work on the issues of the Druze, but certainly Yazidis, I would say, this caucus would be a great help for them.
Let's take a look at the cause you said. Hinduphobia is, of course, front and center. And it's not like the caucus has to just work on one subject at a time. I would like to draw your attention, Utsav, to the Hindu genocide that took place in 1971. That work got started in the previous session of Congress. Where does that stand now?
So we are, as Hindu Action, as members of the community, actually both myself and Adelle are in very front and center of this desire and an effort to reintroduce the 1971 genocide resolution in this Congress as well. We both work together on that, and hopefully something should happen soon. There are so many factors around the world that are affecting any movement on that, including the fact that there is a general election in Bangladesh at the end of this year. So we are up against massive lobbies with CARE and ICNA and what doing their bid with millions of dollars on it. So it's a challenging task for us. But this is another issue that the Hindu Caucus should and can consider as one of his issues. And it's not just the 1971 genocide in which nearly 2.8 million Hindus were killed, the largest unrecognized genocide of the 20th century. There have been continuous genocides across the region, starting in Kashmir and continuously happen even in Pakistan today, that need addressing. And I think the caucus can really be a voice for those issues.
Thank you, Utsav. And before I come to you, Adelle, I have to tell you one story. It is hilarious, stupidity on my part. Ro came for his last town hall meeting. It was sometime, I think, a couple of months ago. And, there was somebody introducing him, and I had him for about 5 minutes, one-on-one. And I had a video camera. Somebody was holding the camera. I started asking questions of Congressman Ro. And the final question that I was going to ask was about whether he would get behind a 1971 Hindu genocide bill should somebody bring it in. And he was all for it. He said how Nixon and Kissinger made a huge mistake, how the ambassador of US in Bangladesh was, East Pakistan, was really telling the situation as it was, that yes, I definitely would like to get behind it. Except when I came back and started looking at my recording, I had forgotten to press the record button.
So, well, the good news, as she, I have to say that, despite all, I may have many disagreements with Ro Khanna on many other geopolitical issues, and that is fair and quite right in this democratic process. I do have to give him credit for the fact that last time, 6-8 months ago, when the previous resolution was introduced, Ro Khanna was the first person to really appreciate it, the value of it, and without any changes in the language or any insistence of changing in the language, he was behind it, and he put his money where his mouth is. And I have to say that he did face a lot of pushback from the Islamists. And I'm glad that he gave you this assurance, because that shows that he did not get cowed down by it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Adelle, any experiences of yours, walking the halls of Congress, Capitol building? Have you? How receptive are some of the senators and congressmen to some of the issues that you've been espousing from Hindu Action?
I have to say it's always interesting and very telling whenever you have, of course, everyone knows that there's a lot of work that goes into any piece of legislation, right? And a lot of the members, unfortunately, don't have the time necessarily to read through all the details. They have their staff
who do all the work. Yeah,
exactly. And it's funny because sometimes the title of whatever that's being presented as a piece of legislation doesn't necessarily match the actual text. And there's certain hidden agenda items inside, right? But it's very telling when certain pieces of legislation are very, very direct and very, very specific in what their causes are and their missions are, which is to advance, let's say, a human rights cause that is anyone in their, I like to say, right mind, or who's on the side of democracy and the side of humanity would want to support it. And then you have those that are the detractors and don't support it. And I think what I'd like to have a takeaway to the listeners is make sure that you, first of all, with regard to the 1971 Bangladesh Genocide Resolution, I think that anyone who's paying attention and following it and is important to them, pay close attention to who's supporting it and who's not, and you'll really get to see who's on the side of who's on the side of humanity versus those who are really not, because it had nothing to do with religion, it had nothing to do with gender or ethnicity. This is a purely humanitarian issue, and genocide is unacceptable in any way, shape, or form. So that's kind of what I'll say. You'll see which members are supportive and which ones aren't, and figure out what maybe their agenda is or who's backing them behind the scenes.
Thank you so much, Adelle. Thank you so much, Utsav. Great beginning, and let's hope that this goes on to greater heights. And we'll be following the caucus closely. And users, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Thank you once again, Adelle. Thank you, Utsav. And we'll be back again with more such illuminating conversations.